Hi guys, welcome. Let's answer some qigong question. All right, from episode 68. From Lawrence, 6448. Hi Lawrence. 2 days ago, could I come back when I'm always out of my head and with a lack of mental energy? Sounds like you're a brain fog. Yeah, I went through that before, and it's really common in BC actually. Because I had a concussion, plus there was a PTSD, anxiety, depression. But before that, it all started physical when I had overtraining syndrome, stage 4, which result in adrenaline fatigue or burnout syndrome. Depending on the doctor, they diagnosed me with different things. That was 5 years ago. And Qigong completely healed me, so I'm 100% recovered now. That's why I'm doing this podcast. The brain fog thing was hilarious, not hilarious now, because like I couldn't even count to 20. At first I was laughing, but then it got, well, because what else could I do at the point, right? So it was really bad. So I tried to approach it with mental stuff. Like maybe I'll just muscle through it. My doctor was telling me to practice counting again, practice talking again, practice focusing on a pen. She was trying, my concussion therapist was trying my best to get me out of brain fog. But that stuff just made me throw up more. If anything, it made it worse. And then Chinese medicine, they were trying to put acupuncture needles all over me, giving me herbs. It helped a little bit, but after about a week or two, it usually comes back. I'm not a doctor, so I can't give you medical advice. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to tell you how I fixed myself, and then you can get from it what you can. But I'm not qualified to give medical advice. So when I was going through that and that the concussion therapist therapy and the MD stuff, the Western medicine didn't work, and the acupuncture and herbology didn't work, I feel really hopeless, right? Because at that point I already wrote 4 books, and all of a sudden I can't even speak in a complete sentence, and I can't even count to 20. At first I was laughing about it, but because I thought it was just a phase, but then after about 5 months or so, I was starting to get really worried. So as a last resort, I started Qigong full time. And now, 5 years later, I'm completely healed. But it took me about 2 years to heal myself. The last 3 years just been for fun. And when I called my Sifu to do Qigong, and I told him all my problems, and I'm going to narrow it down to the brain fog to help you, he said something that surprised me at the time, and that is, Adam, you're looking at the pen and practicing counting and all that stuff. You kind of muscle through the symptoms. It's not going to work. So I'm like, hey, what should I do? And the Sifu was like, you should practice Qigong. I'm like, yeah, okay. That's such an umbrella term. What should I be doing? And he told me to charge my lower burner. In Chinese is Yang San Gong, right? So I don't know how to translate in English, but nourishing the body to up the battery, to up the chi charge in your body. And I was like, okay, but I get a brain problem and you're telling me to charge the lower burner. But of course, I'm not going to argue with him because he was a head professor of Chinese medicine from Beijing. I'm a Qigong teacher. So he told me to charge the burner, and in classical non-doing tradition that we do, the way we do that is through post-training. And through post-training, when you get enough juice, naturally the brain fog will go away. And then you can deal with other symptoms later. I was like, okay, that's a good game plan. And then I started doing post-training. But I couldn't do it. Like within 5 minutes, I started throwing up, right? The concussion stuff started to act up. So I was like, Sifu, this standing stuff, you tell me it's going to work, but I'm throwing up over here. So that's when I went and learned the other system. And moving Qigong, standing Qigong, sitting in a chair Qigong, sitting on a cushion Qigong, and laying down Qigong. I didn't know at the time that these different sectors of Qigong are all the same, but in the same time, they're very, very, very different for a very different purpose. They're different until eventually they become the same. Second thing I didn't know is no matter which one of the six you learn, unless you learn to adjust it for the particular problem you have and your unique mind and body, it really doesn't work that well. In the case of just standing and here I am throwing up, that proves it didn't work at that moment. There needs to be more adjustment. So when I study longer, what I realize is it's like, Adam, you should be doing moving qigong, very, very, very slow base. So I went and started doing moving qigong, and it made me throw up even more. The reason is I had brain fog. Everything up here was messed up, and I was learning a qigong system that was constantly moving the qi upward. Like this is already imbalanced. It's already up here, and I'm moving stuff higher. Of course, I'm going to throw up and get dizzy. So that didn't work. And that's when I went to see my good friend Steve Smith, who became my third instructor in Qigong. And he taught me the head and mountain system, and it completely fixed me. Because you can't just go around telling people to stand, and you can't just go around telling people to move their hands like this and come back down. In my case, it made my symptoms worse. Because my stuff was already too up here, and he's telling me to move it higher, or telling me to just stand when I can barely count to 5. I didn't even have the brain power to focus. So that's an example of how Qigong does not work unless you have a good teacher. So I started getting healed when I ended up doing the Heavy Mountain tradition and getting a teacher that knew how to adjust stuff. And one of the first things I learned was you have to move so you can stand. And that kind of blew my mind. I mean, it's simple now, but at the time I was like, I thought post-training is where all the power is packed. Yeah, but if you can't even stand for 5 minutes, you got to learn how to move first. And not just move anywhere you like, but to move in such a way, for me at the point, was 80% down and 1%, not 20% up, or 90% down, 10% up, because I already had brain fog. So the idea was to move everything down. And when I learned that kind of Qigong set, it really helped. Because for the first time, I stopped throwing up and getting dizzy. My vertigo went away. And once I get to that point, around the second month, then I can start standing. And I started with 10 minutes. Eventually, I worked up to about an hour every day standing. Once I started standing, in other episodes, I talked about the process, so I'll skip it today. It got to the point the lower burner, the immune system area, was starting to charge up. The next thing that happened was the bones starting to charge up. The ball started to charge up. And by the time I got to the point where the ball here was connected to the ball down here, I felt a lot stronger. I was standing about an hour a day. At that point, I remember realizing it later, all my brain fog went away. So I don't know if that's going to help you, but that was what I went through. That is kind of like ironic. I got a brain problem and I approached it through the body layer and it got me a lot better, right? So I hope that helps. Second thing that I learned through that process is don't hold on to the identity of someone that is sick. The reason why I bring that up is I've been reading your comments and you comment quite a bit, which I want to thank you for supporting the channel. I can't help but notice that there's a feeling I get that I was like that, where I start seeing myself as somebody that was sick, right? I'm not accusing you of doing that. I'm saying I was like that, and it's reminding me of that. So you gotta not see yourself as a sick person. And the flip side is true. Like when you're teaching Qigong, I don't see myself as a Qigong teacher. Because the minute that I see myself as a healer or a teacher, automatically the other person is seen as a sick person or a student. When you project that onto your student, when they're coming for you for help, they'll start looking at you as a teacher and looking at themselves by default as a sick person. When you hold on to your identity as a sick person, subconsciously, you're not giving yourself a chance to feel better. Because from a Taoist point of view, sick qi is something that passes through you. Just like your waste, like when you have to poo, when you have to pee, it's something that's supposed to pass through you. Everything's a verb, nothing's a noun in Taoism. The whole point of yin and yang, the S in the middle. But when we start identifying ourselves as a sick person, whether we know it or not, we're holding on to the sick qi. We're not giving it a chance to pass through. So rather the problem is brain fog, or maybe it's adrenaline fatigue, or maybe it's bad joints, or deaf anxiety, whatever is the reason that we're doing Qigong and learning healing, It's important for us to not identify ourselves as a sick person, but the sickness is just what we call sick qi, something that's supposed to pass through. So that's very important. And it's important to project that or to pass that on to your students for those that are teaching. And that is, don't see yourself as a teacher. Therefore, they can't see themselves as a student. Don't see yourself as a healer. Therefore, they can't see themselves as a sick person. So when I teach qigong, I follow the classical Taoist way, and that is, I don't see myself as a teacher. I see myself as a helper. I'm just helping you to open up so that qi can teach you. I don't teach you. Who the hell am I to teach you? It's the Tao that teaches. So that's the classical way of looking at it. And I notice if we can pass it on, it's placebo effect in many ways, right? You stop identifying yourself in that way, now the good stuff can come in and the bad stuff can leave. And that philosophy also, of course, helps a lot in life. For those that are interested, you can read the Tao Te Ching. Let me see. There. Tao Te Ching, very famous book. The whole thing is talking about some of the things we discussed today, which is to flow with things and let the good come and let the bad go, right? So anyways, I hope I answered your question. If I didn't, I apologize. I'm just babbling. If you have any more questions, please leave it in a comment below and we can deep into the discussion. For those that are interested in training with me, we run the online Taoist community. We train one time together a week in a live stream class. All classes are stored in the student library. And every single student get individualized, customized instruction. And we do that through the student forum. And also the live Q&A period at the end of class. And there's other features in the community. If you're interested, follow the links below in the description. Hope to see you there. Have a good night.